Hi and welcome back. This is Gmax 1.2 for the beginning modeler video number 46. We're wrapping up the virtual cockpit work in the previous videos. So in this video we're going to test the VC in the flight simulator. So this is part 7 of the VC series. Hi, my name is Milton Shupe, and the objective of this video is to take our work that we did in the virtual cockpit and merge it into our aircraft project. You remember this? Once we get it merged together, then we'll prepare the aircraft for export to the sim, and then we'll go take a look at the panel config in the panel folder to see what we done there to set up the panel to display gauges. We'll pull up the panel in FSPanel Studio, and I'll show you how to set up your gauge layout, how to add gauges, etc. And then once we do that, show you the $VC texture that we generated and how we actually use that texture to texture the panel in the flight sim. And then we'll try to open up flight sim and take a look at our work with a panel, VC panel with gauges, and test our animations that we put in the cockpit. So with that, let's get started. Here's the aircraft we were working on, and you may recall I started with deleting out the little cubby hole here that was the original cockpit seating area, and also the area where the glare shield was to be. So we have this opening that we need to fill, so let's go grab the virtual cockpit we've been working on by using the merge function, and we'll just come over here and pick up our final VC work and see what we can do to get it in the sim here. So what we want is select subtree and pick up virtual cockpit, and that should be all of it. Yes. So we're going to merge that in. It says the objects being merged or parented to the fuselage. Do you want to reparent to the fuselage in the current scene? Yes, we do. So there we go. That baby is popped in here. And then we'll probably have to, let's see if we need to link it or if it's already, no, it's right there. So everything's good. So now that we've got it in here, assuming everything's correct, we're going to go to the right viewport. Let's change this to wireframe just to decrease the rendering load here as we're trying to clone parts and what have you. Now, in order to get a virtual cockpit to show in the flight sim, you have to have an interior model along with your exterior model. So how do we get to an interior model? Well, we just clone the exterior. So first of all, we're going to select the exterior, and we're going to scroll down to the bottom here just to be sure there's no parts that are not linked to the top of the order here, exterior. So everything needs to be in the scene, whether it's unhidden like we have here, or if it's hidden, everything needs to be linked to exterior. Otherwise, your export will not run correctly. So now we've got all the parts selected. We're going to select and move so we can clone this. We're going to hold down the shift key and click on the gizmo there. And we're going to name the copy the interior model. Interior. Okay, we've cloned it. The interior model is now selected, so we're going to hide unselected, the exterior model. Just to verify that, we'll deselect here and go take a look. Yes, we have our interior model. Everything looks good. So now normally we would have a pilot coming in from the exterior model. We'd need to delete that out. Since we don't yet have a pilot, we're ready to go ahead and hide this. And we're ready to export. So let's export the bad boy. File export. And we're going to go select our XP54 video model set up, and we're going to change the save as type to Flight Sim Aircraft Object. Once we have that, we can select the name there and save it. And yes, we want to replace it. Yes, overwrite it. And since we're using make model middleman and model commander here, we're going to go to this little GUI thing that says correct the specular values in the model. And we'll let this export run. It should be done shortly, actually. Alright, and it is done. So we'll want to just close that. We don't need to save those changes, so we'll close that, and we'll slide over here to panel config. I want to open your aircraft folder here and go to panel folder, and then we're going to open the panel config. We just want to explain and tie this back to what we did in the Cockpit setup series. You remember when we textured the panel, we called that texture $BCO1. So this is how you tell the sim that this is the object, that BC planar that we developed and applied the texture to by naming it $BCO1. This is the planar from which you'll use the coordinates to place the gauges. So that texture equals parameter has to have a $sign, any name, doesn't matter, doesn't have to be BCO1, just $sign, any name, my panel, whatever. And there's your communications to Flight Sim that says use these coordinates to place these gauges. Also remember, when we save that bitmap, we saved it as a 1024. So this parameter and this parameter needs to be 1024 by 1024. Now, in order for that texture to actually show up in the sim, we have to tell that since these $sign textures aren't used for display purposes, what I've done is save that texture in the panel folder, but I removed the $sign. And I'm telling Flight Sim now that the file I want you to use in the virtual cockpit is BCO1. And if we go take a look at that, you'll see BCO1 here. Let's open it. And there's the texture that we generated out of lith unwrap and applied to the panel planar and called it $BCO1. Well, I just copied that, put it in the panel folder, stripped off the $sign, and that's in there and ready to use. Okay, now what do we do? Well, we've got this section set up, and you can see I've already put some gauges in here to save time, but we're going to open FSPanel Studio here. You'll see the texture. I've gone to open up that panel folder and picked up the panel config, and it had this BCO1 bitmap in it. And I went and dragged gauges into this and placed them just to save some time. But I want to show you how you do that. So if you're sitting here with a blank texture and you need gauges, well, you just go up to gauge and add gauge, and you go find your gauge source. In this case, I used some of the gauges I've got in similar era aircraft like AT11, and I pulled gauges from here, and I pulled gauges from my XB72. Most of these gauges came out of there. Actually, some of those gauges came from this particular cab file for my Beechcraft AT11. But you just go select the gauge, whatever it is, and like the rudder trim here. I already put one here, but I'll show you how to do that, and it just pops it onto your screen. And you can size that by, if you want to size it and put it down here with the elevator trim. If you select both of them, you can right click on it then and say set the same size as the other one I selected, smallest or largest. Those are your options. And it automatically then sizes it the same as that one. And then you can just drag this wherever you want in the scene, or well, on the panel, and position it. And then you have other things that you can do, like highlight the gauges that you want in that line and right click and say line up horizontally, and it automatically lines them up for you. So it's essentially that easy. Now you can also edit gauges here. If you want to do that, you can edit the selected gauge, and you can go in and make whatever changes you want. Change the background bitmap, change the needle bitmap. You can actually edit the XML. So everything you need to do to that gauge is right here in FSPanel Studio. It's a great tool. It has saved me hundreds of hours, and it's worth the $30 US that I paid for it a few years back. And I don't know why I waited so long. Trying to place these manually is a real nightmare. Place them and size them, and it's just a nightmare. You got to have this tool if you're going to do any panel work. It's just awesome. So that's a little bit about FSPanel Studio. And once you made your changes, of course, you want to save. But we're good to go where we are. Okay, so we've set up the panels, the virtual cockpit section in the bottom of the panel config. We've put gauges in, so we're good to go there. So what's next? Well, I guess we can open Flight Sim and see if this will come up with this video recording. It's going to chew up some megabytes once it starts, but that's fine too. We'll try to keep it short, but what we want to do is go in and I've already got this flight up, so it'll load a little faster. And there, we're in the aircraft we built, looking at the panel, the virtual cockpit. Let's back up here a little bit, that we built. Those are the thingies you may remember on the hanging off the left wall. And that works. The rudder pedals work. You look at these and it looks a little clunky without textures, and of course that's why you come and look at it in Sim, see what you need to do differently. But you can see the mixture knob works, the prop feather works, and the throttle works, the flaps, you can click and drag, or you can do whatever. You can see that the elevator trim works, rudder trim works, aileron trim works. You can click on switches. Might be a little far away here. Click on switches to get these things to work. These are all light switches and generator switches. Turn them off and on. Let's see. It's the pitot, and this is the fuel pump. Alright, so all those little bad boys work. Let's get back out here so you see the gauges. Let's see, we don't have an engine started here, but I wonder if we can make this start. The aircraft we've been wanting. So we're cooking with gas here. There's all the beauty. Remember all that time we spent on that canopy frame? There it is, boys and girls. Exhaust ports. So there we go. It's we got ourselves an aeroplane. Okay. Look at that suspension work, would you? Let's put on the emergency brake here. check the suspension. You notice the nose wheel compresses, and actually the back suspension actually comes up a little bit because the prop's trying to push you forward, and the front brake's holding you, and the rear brakes are holding you, and yet the aircraft wants to get forward regardless of the braking. But anyhow, that's what we've got. So I hope this has been helpful and get you started. It just shows you that once you follow some processes, you can do this too. And I've got a mixture of flat panel gauges here as well as all the 3D objects. So you can do the 3D gauges, but because you're pixel restricted on your bezels, it's really hard to do a decent looking bezel in FS9 because the vertices tend to get welded if you try to go with a 32-sided bezel. So generally in FS9 we just paint the bezels in behind the aircraft. So anyhow, that's what I wanted to show you this go around, and I sure hope that this virtual cockpit series has been helpful in getting you to understand how to go about breaking it down to simple structures and building one thing at a time and bringing it into flight sim. It's been a kind of a fast but fun experience, and I think I've shown you everything you need to know to do this successfully. So if you have any comments regarding that, anything I've left out that I felt was appropriate, comment below. In the meantime, enjoy your modeling, and this kind of wraps up the VC series, and it wraps up the aircraft series. So we've got a few more things to talk about, and we'll do that in the next video. So guys, thanks for sticking with me, and I hope all of this is going to be extremely helpful to you. Have a good day.